All right, welcome, Gearheads. We just watched Lando Norris with his second pole ever at the Spanish Grand Prix. Very exciting. The Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. It's John Massengale, joined by Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland will be joining us live from Barcelona in just a moment. Bob Varsha, are you as excited as I am about Lando Norris on pole?
Who couldn't be? I mean, gosh, the way McLaren has shot to the front in the company of Ferrari and now Mercedes as well, the way they're challenging Red Bull. It's got to be an awful time for Sergio Perez right now,
Oh,
who's not able to make the top 10 while his team. I mean, this is what he's hired for. This is where he needs to come through. And thus far, it just hasn't been working for Sergio to the point where they're talking about putting him in an older chassis to see if he can sort of reconnect with the success he had in the past. But yeah, terrific qualifying session. I did not expect Norris to get a pole to the moment when he came off that final corner. I thought, nah, it's going to be close, but no cigar. And whammo, there it was. So, boy, those guys are good everywhere. All the experts have talked about it. This is maybe the most exemplary track in Formula One. The team's tested here for a million years. They've raced here since the early 90s. They all have great big thick notebooks full of setup information. I mean, there are no secrets in Spain at Barcelona. And if you get it right there, you can be good anywhere. But it's also extremely competitive.
well, I saw that we tweeted out earlier. Will we really have four teams fighting for the pole position today? And I don't know if we had four, but the fact that so just run down real quick. Lando Norris on pole, followed by Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, then George Russell, then Charles Leclerc, and Carlos Sainz, and then an Alpine, Pierre Gasly, and then Sergio Perez down in eighth, Ocon in ninth, and Piastri in 10th. But yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing, that we've got multiple teams in the hunt. Bob, I think that's got to be the overarching thing here.
Yeah, definitely. And even, Ferrari is actually on kind of a rebound because 2 weeks ago in Montreal, they were nowhere. And now here they are, back in there fighting for pole. I mean, they only got as far as the third row, but still, that's a great rebound effort for the red cars. And you're right. I mean, what more could you ask? I think Piastri's lap, where he ran out of grip and went off the road, says a lot about just how hard McLaren is pushing. And it says even more about Lando Norris's lap, because I'm sure he was as close to the edge as his teammate. Piastri went over the edge. Norris managed to keep it on the island and was justly rewarded with his second career pole position. So, yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. The wind has come up. The temperature's cooling, as you heard throughout the TV broadcasts. Could be a front coming through. Could be rain overnight. And, that makes it a whole new ball game come race time tomorrow.
You know what? That's a really good point, though, about Piastri, about him pushing so hard and going off track on his fastest lap, final lap there in Q3. And like you said, it's a really telling lap for Lando Norris, because Piastri has been really as quick as Lando, or very close, pretty much all season long. So that was like Lando said himself, he said pretty much a perfect lap. And I think, and I was doing the exact same thing. I was watching and I said, okay, he's got a purple sector, but I thought, no, he's not going to beat Max. But to me, beat Max by 2 whole hundredths. It's hey, but we joke
we'll take it. Right.
But but that's how close to this season. That's actually, that's sort of a gap this season.
Yeah, spectacular stuff. And I'm sure tomorrow will be more of the same if everybody, checks their ego at the door, as they say, and is cool about things. I was surprised watching third practice at the road rage, as the announcers call it. I mean, even Charles Leclerc banging into to Lando.
Yeah.
Maybe he modified the McLaren so that Lando could get the pole position today. But yeah, lots of impeding, lots of retaliation, which is pretty scary. But huge crowds and the potential for a great race.
Well, you said Leclerc bumping into Lando. I mean, it was an intentional, is what it looked like. It's pretty clear.
Was, yeah.
And then Lance Stroll did the same thing to Hamilton, although that one didn't surprise me, honestly. That's kind of Lance being, but you could tell these guys have such control of the car. It was almost like, I'm just bumping into you and just letting you know that I'm upset about you impeding me. But they both, were you surprised at all that neither one of them got a penalty? There's a Stroll or Leclerc. They both got just a reprimand.
Very much so, particularly Leclerc. As you say, these guys know the cars well. They're like stunt pilots, and I think we saw in slow-mo that Leclerc actually banged wheels with Norris, which is probably the least potentially damaging thing you can do. So it'd be interesting to hear what Norris and Leclerc talk about afterward. Lewis, for his part, stepped right up and said, "Whoops, that was me. I'm sorry. I'll apologize." Yeah. So
Lewis took full blame for that. It was his fault. But that was interesting. I want to go back to something you said, because Max Verstappen said it on his podium interview. He said that he mentioned the wind, and that that was, who knows how that played into the lap times and qualifying, and of course the race, because all the teams were talking about it. And look, let's face it, the aerodynamic brilliance in Formula One can all get turned upside down by a gust of wind.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but you can see it in the racetrack. This track sits up very high. It's almost like Silverstone, which of course was once an airport. Not the case here at Barcelona, but it sits up high. And as the announcers were saying, when you come up to turn 9, you come up over a brow, and that's about the most exposed you can be. So if the wind's blowing, you're going to feel it. And we've known for a long time that these highly aerodynamic open-wheel cars, Indy cars as well as Formula One cars, can be very much affected by wind. Look what happens every year at the Indy 500. The teams are always talking about where's the wind coming from, how hard is it blowing, because it really does have a huge effect on these cars.
Yeah. Well, let's go out to Chris Medland, because he just popped on and he is out in Barcelona. Mr. Medland, how are you, sir?
I'm doing okay, chaps. Sorry if the voice is a bit funny. I've been a bit unwell during the week, but I'm shaking it off. So I'm going to be fighting fit by the time the race starts tomorrow. But that was a cracker, wasn't it? What a finish!
Yeah, it was.
That was.
Try a little Rioja.
I think I need to stay off with all that. I tell you that. But just a bit of a cold, so nothing too major. I'm just feeling sorry for myself, but I'll get over it.
Hey, you got to get over it, buddy, because you're in Barcelona watching Lando Norris on pole.
I am indeed. I mean, I'm also stalking Zach Brown right now, who's doing a Sky TV interview. I'm seeing if I can get him afterwards. And hopefully people won't give me a wide berth because of how I'm sounding. But I mean, that was, I don't want to say unexpected, but as qualifying progressed, people in the press room were all starting to get this kind of impression of, oh, it was looking close, but now it looks like Max has just probably got a bit too much for everyone. So in that sense, it was unexpected that when Max went so much quicker on his final run, lowered the benchmark by over 2/10, for Lando to still beat him was, really special lap.
Yeah, we talked about that before you came on air. Precisely that it did not look like a pole lap for Norris, but there it was.
Hey, Chris, you're stalking Zach Brown. That's actually one of the first things I did when Lando got poles. I jumped on Twitter to see if Zach had tweeted, because he gets very excited and he'll express it on Twitter, but he has not. But I'm sure that he is glowing electric with excitement right now.
Yeah, it's been a tough day though for McLaren. I must point this out. I don't know how many people will be aware because of the time zone difference, but they actually had a fire in their hospitality unit earlier today, and that's taken it out of complete action. It's led to one team member taken to hospital as a precaution. We'll wait to see how they are later on. But everyone else is accounted for and is okay. But it was kind of a scary start to the day for them. A lot of people were in that motorhome when it appears to have been an electrical fire between two of the floors of the building. So it took a little while to get to and find. So that's kind of knocked them back a bit in terms of their other operations here, but not on track. They've delivered really well there. Yeah.
Did you see who one of the first potential rescuers was on the scene?
Yeah,
Our
Mario
old friend
Isola,
Mario
straight
Isola
in there.
from Pirelli. He is actually
next door.
Yeah, he's apparently a certified fire and rescue extraction EMT, whatever it is they call them over there. So good on Mario.
Oh, that's funny. I saw that picture though. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
He spends a number of his off days driving ambulances in Milan, and he'll do night shifts. He'll finish a Grand Prix, and a day or two later, he's on a night shift. It's remarkable what he does. So, yeah, it's fair play to him. So I don't know how he gets to a Formula One season and still has the energy to do something like that. It's pretty incredible. But speaking of incredible, Red Bull have been pretty incredible all year long. And I thought Max Verstappen was looking pretty incredible during that session to lower the benchmarks he did. But I've got Christian Horner in front of me. And Christian, were you surprised that Lando could pull out the lap he did to beat Max right at the end?
Well, not really. You could see it was between the two of them. And I thought, as a team, we'd really responded well overnight and got the car into a better window. Max was saying he was much happier. And, 200ths of a second is, that's in Montreal, we missed it on a dead heat. Here, we've missed it by 200ths, but still on the front row. So very happy with that. And a great performance by Max and good recovery from the team.
Well, one thing that we always look at is headline lap times, but it's race pace that really matters. How are you looking going into tomorrow's race? Because yesterday, I think you looked pretty strong, certainly on that soft tyre at one stage.
Yeah, I think, the race here can be pretty hard on the tyres. And it depends what weather we're going to get when we open the curtains tomorrow. I mean, there's a bit of rain around. How long that will last, we don't know. But, it's going to be a really interesting race, I think. A tactical race, strategic race, and one about tyres.
Is it going to be massively important to try and get in the lead early on then? Are we all close enough now that if Max is the second car on the roads, that it's not just a foregone conclusion that at some point he'll get ahead?
Well, look, I think, as we saw in Montreal, that we didn't lead the beginning of the race in Montreal. It's about being on your toes, responding, having good degradation. Now, the McLaren, recently has looked pretty strong in race trim. So they're going to be a tough competitor tomorrow, but we'll push them hard. We'll push them all the way and see what we can get.
Any fear from the guys behind as well? 2 Mercedes right behind you?
Yeah, I mean, Mercedes are quick. Ferrari have looked strong. So super, super tight, between the teams at the moment. So we're having to be right at the top of our game to stay ahead.
Well, we'll look forward to watching it play out tomorrow. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I thought for sure he was going to use that word convergence again. I think that's the word he's been using all year, because it's actually really spot on, right? I mean, that's what we see. He talks about how every year past new regulations, the teams will get closer and closer. And here we are. It's a perfect example of where we're at right now.
Yeah, it is. But to be fair, I mean, I always point out how in Barcelona we quite often see upgrades. And Red Bull brought some upgrades here, as most did, but McLaren didn't. McLaren are one team that haven't actually brought a specific upgrade here, or at least a firm one that was submitted to the FIA. So in that sense, it was Red Bull looking to try and hit back a bit, and they're still under threat. Now, I said about stalking Zach Brown. I am now stalking him again. He's with Italian TV. And guess what he's wearing on his head? Any guesses? He's wearing a Ferrari cap. He's got a Ferrari cap on backwards. I think Fred Varsha is somewhere around here and is going to be guilty for that one. He's got him again. So.
Lost a bet, maybe?
Well, it happened in Imola. He did it as well. I was waiting to interview Fred, and he made me wait while he ran over and put a Ferrari cap on Zach then after that race. So he's got him again here, which good bit of branding. It's a Carlos one as well. So, if he's got the home hero at least.
I'm guessing Zach Brown, a noted collector of competition cars, has his eye on some vintage Ferrari, and he's trying to make nice with all the folks from Maranello so that they'll sell him one.
Well, he needs to make nice with everyone up and down this paddock right now, because he needs some extra hospitality units. Don't forget, we are at the first race of a triple header. So it has been said that the team has had support from other teams. But yeah, I'm not sure that their hospitality unit is going to be usable for the next race in Austria or even Silverstone, depending on how bad the damage is. So yeah, he's probably going around saying, hey, can someone lend us something that we can put different stickers on?
Yeah. Bob, no groaning on a triple header mention. You're excited for a triple header.
I am. I'm not sure the mechanics and the hospitality workers and everybody else is, but I certainly am. At least they don't have to go far. It's just a few hours drive to Austria and then hop the channel and race in Britain. So it's not as bad as it could be.
Hey, Chris, the fire, I saw that you snapped a photo on Twitter, it looks like with your phone, but were you nearby? Did you see smoke?
I actually popped out a little bit afterwards, came down to see. whether I could kind of find out what had gone on. I'm just going to see if right now, don't know if I can do a walk and talk. Great timing. Zach's given back his Ferrari cap. But Zach, how special does that feel? Because what a lap from Lando to take pole.
I need another paycheck from Ferrari if I'm going to keep wearing their hats. Look at all that exposure I'm getting them. No, in all seriousness, that was a great session by the team. Obviously, a fantastic lap from Lando. The team got him out at exactly the right time. Unfortunate Oscar had his issue in the third sector. He clearly would have been a lot near the front, but we've got a long race to go tomorrow. No points for today, but I like where we're starting.
Well, based on that, what can you do tomorrow? Is this car quick enough to win the race, or is Red Bull's race pace around this track specifically going to be tough to hold back?
Oh, it's definitely going to be a tough race, but our race pace looks strong, so I'd like to think we have as good a shot as anyone at winning tomorrow. But the weather, I think, could be tricky, so that could throw some curveballs everyone's way.
I've got to tell the listeners the smile on your face, because you're going to say this every weekend now. This McLaren is fully a race-winning and race-competing team at every track.
This all the men and women at McLaren have done an awesome job getting this race car to where it can be stuck on pole by our drivers, and very excited for tomorrow.
And can I just finally ask, is everyone okay after the fire earlier? What's the damage in terms of the infrastructure?
Infrastructure is pretty damaged. We've got to fully assess it, but most importantly, everyone's okay.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. And well done today.
Thank you.
Oh, brilliant, Chris. That's great. I'm glad everybody's okay. I saw that everybody was okay. That is very interesting how that's going to affect the team preparation, and what's going to play out of that.
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued. I would have liked to have asked him a bit more about it, but we managed to walk down the paddock too. He had a TV crew waiting for him at the back of the McLaren garage, and we'd reached that point. So that was, I got a frown from his personal assistant for asking an extra question, but I just didn't want to leave it untouched. So I'll see if I can do some digging actually after we're off air, probably ahead of tomorrow's show, just to know the real extent, because we've only actually now had the paddock reopened to allow us that far down to the McLaren kind of end. They had security blocking it off for a long time because they were still trying to work out what had gone on. I tell you what, I'm going to walk to Alpine because I saw a picture that I want to see if it's true of the fire crews had been writing on the Alpine trucks with different coloured pens, trying to work out the source of the fire. So if that is true, I'll go and explain it as best I can on radio.
Using it like a dry erase board?
Yeah.
Using the Alpine truck? Well, Alpine's not doing much with it, so yeah, we'll write on it.
Exactly that.
That's great.
I wouldn't be surprised. Knowing Formula One, I wouldn't be surprised if McLaren has a backup hospitality unit that's already on its way to Austria.
Well, so teams used to have multiple, but they did also cut down in terms of, they didn't want to have too much wastage. Now, we know Red Bull have a special one that's already in Austria because they have a bigger one for their home race. It's the Red Bull ring that we're racing at, but McLaren don't have that luxury. So, and this triple header has proven tricky in the past because of the fact that they have to move stuff around so much. So I'm not convinced with this one they do have that. It's actually a slimmed down version of their previous one. That if anyone saw photos of it, it's a silver kind of circular hospitality building. It was a very cool looking space. I'll tell you, I'm down here now outside the new one, and it still smells a lot. But anything that's been written in terms of the kind of whiteboard, it has been wiped off. So sadly, the Renault trucks are no longer branded in the way that I was led to believe, which is a bit of a shame because I thought that would have been quite cool.
All right, well, let's get a quick break in, and you're listening to Speed City F1 post-qualifying show. Back after these messages. All right, I'm assuming we're still live on the stream. Let's see what the boys and girls are doing out there. Lots of the usual suspects. Paul Veltum says, thanks for the show, fellas. You're very welcome, Paul.
Hey, Paulie. He's my producer for the Champ Car series, the control series for all manner of race cars. It used to be called Chump Car, bring out your $500, hot rod and race. Good bunch of folks, and Paulie produces our live streams.
Oh, well, welcome, Paul. I specifically want to jump on the stream to see how Andy P was doing because I'm assuming he had to peel himself off the ceiling after Lando on pole. And yes, he's got some all caps. Heck yeah, I'm excited. He said Lando is He's had that car hooked up from the jump this weekend. Suffice it to say, I'm a happy dude. Yep, I figured you would be. Joe of Oyster Bay is in here. Kevin Kelly's here. All the usual suspects.
Someone who is not that we should probably mention, and you may have done it on your midweek show, John, is Paul Bryan, a great car guy, great motorsports guy, great U.S. military veteran, great foodie, just very opinionated, very entertaining guy. And unfortunately, he passed away in the last week or so.
Yep. I'm pretty bummed out about that, and a little emotional about it. Paul and I actually connected quite a bit, and I had a voicemail from him from about a month ago that I haven't listened to yet. Honestly, I will, but yeah, I was really. He and I were texting up, and all of a sudden he just stopped responding, and I tried, and I knew he was not feeling well, but yeah, I'm sure all of you remember all the quips that he dropped into the streams. All right.
Yep. Clever guy. Paul.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. Speed City F1 post-qualifying show for the Spanish Grand Prix. John Massengale with Bob Varsha and Chris Medland live in Barcelona. Chris, give us your eyes and ears. What's happening?
Well, so I'm walking back towards where the drivers do their interviews, which is at the kind of the top end of the paddock, should I say. Actually, I've maybe bumped into someone I wanted to get, if possible. It's Bruno Faman, who hopefully will answer a question or two, because Bruno, both Alpine cars in Q3, a really competitive weekend for you guys so far, and no one was really talking it up before you came here. So where did that come from?
Come from work, from all the team. Okay, we're happy with for having for the first time in the season the two car in Q3. Now the points are tomorrow. We need to score points, and yeah, everybody's working hard at the factories, both Very and Enston. You know, we have a new technical director with a new view on what we are doing, and we are very happy with that. But we try to improve slowly. But yeah, we're happy to be back where we should have been from the start of the season.
Yeah, I think 7th place for Pierre Gasly tomorrow. 8th, I think, for Ocon with the penalty for Sergio Perez. So the two of them will start alongside each other, but in the points. Is that going to be an interesting conversation for you to have to try and set that race up and make sure they race clean?
No, they already know. Then I have nothing to add to them. They know.
Okay, and just finally, a big story this weekend with Flavio Briatore getting a role with the team. What's his kind of jurisdiction going to be, and what led to his return?
Yeah, I think we're happy to have him on board for helping the team to develop better, to go faster in our recovery. We're happy to be in Q3 today, but we want to fight for big points on the podium as soon as possible. And I'm sure with the 40 years experience Flavio have, he will help us in doing that.
I know there's been a lot of questions about his return, but both cars in the top 8 today. I think he's a lucky charm for you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant job, Chris. Getting all the team principals out there today. Hey, I want to ask both of you, Chris and Bob, about what's your reactions to Flavio Briatore coming back to Alpine. Bob, I want to start with you.
Well, we learned a long time ago that a lifetime ban from Formula One is anything but. Of course, Flavio was ejected after the 2009 Crashgate incident at Singapore, in which Nelson Piquet Jr. was, as we learned later, ordered to crash his car just after his teammate Fernando Alonso had pitted, which allowed Alonso to get to the front of the queue, stay there, keeping the rest of the field behind him, and win the race. He and Pat Simmons, who was the technical director of the team at that time, were both banned. Simmons was allowed back in the sport quite some time ago and is now on the payroll at Andretti Global. Flavio took longer, but maybe it's not a surprise. Flavio has always been his own man. He is a complete buccaneer. I mean, he owns this fabulous yacht that he supposedly was sending out as a charter boat to escape taxes under Italian law, and then they officials found out that he had never chartered the boat, so he got in trouble for that. He owned a club called Billionaires in some fabulous place like Marbella or Capri or somewhere, and had the guts to grab the son of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi by the scruff of the neck and throw him out the door for misbehavior. And Gaddafi, of course, was a guy who was not shy about lopping off various body parts from people that he didn't like. So, Flavio doesn't care what anybody thinks, knows everybody in Formula One. I can see where he would be a real asset to that team. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people left the team once Flavio starts picking and choosing. But as for the crime, he served a decade, more than that, actually, decade and a half for the instigation of Crashgate. Tom Walkinshaw was a co-owner of some Formula One operations with him, but Walkinshaw passed away years ago. Flavio's back. He can bring nothing but glamour and excitement, I'm sure.
Hey, Chris Medland, I'll ask you the same question, but I do hear your mic lighting up.
I'm just in a busy spot. I'm trying to see if I can get Toto Wolff for this sec, but he's chatting to Esteban Ocon right now at the back of the Mercedes motorhome. But I'll be honest, I agree with Bob's point that his ban that was overturned then meant he was free to return to F1 if he wanted from 2013. He was actually banned from all motorsport by the FIA originally, and I feel like that was a very clear line in the sand the FIA tried to draw. I think a French court is what overturned it, and whether or not you agreed with the fact it was overturned, 2013 was when he was able to come back. So if he is able to come back, you kind of can't criticize a team that feels he has value for bringing him back. What I really disliked, I will admit, and it just wasn't the time to put it to him in that interview just now, but when Bruno Famin was asked about Briatore's past, he actually said, this was on Friday in the press conference, he said, it doesn't matter. I don't care what anyone's done in the past, as long as they can help us be better in the future. And it seemed, a bit of an odd take. So he got a follow-up question saying, you said this, did you mean that? I mean, what does that mean? Or what does that say about the culture at Alpine? That who cares about what you've done in the past and what your history is? We don't care whether you have done bad things as long as you can help us. That's not a great thing to say, is it? And he basically went, I just looking into the future. I don't care about the past. I'm looking at the future. Wasn't particularly happy with that stance. And in fact, I wasn't happy at all with that stance. I think that's pretty tone deaf in this day and age. I don't think Alpine team members will be delighted with that, to hear it put that way from their leadership. And I don't think everyone will be delighted he's back within that team. But it is true that A, he has served his time based on what the punishment ended up being, and B, that he does have huge experience and connections. But it's just a bit of a surprise to me, actually, that a 74-year-old like Flavio is seen as the answer to Alpine in modern day F1 to turn their woes around. Similarly, because it's not what he's just done that's led to them being 7th and 8th on the grid here this weekend. That's as Faman says, that's the hard work of the team that's already in place. So a little bit surprised.
And let's keep in mind, Flavio has Fernando Alonso's manager all these years since. No change when he was shamed by the FIA. There's just a lot of cards in play at Alpine right now. Recall that they've about decided that they want to split from Renault and not use Renault engines. They want to go elsewhere to see what they can pick up in terms of a drivetrain, which probably tells you a lot too, and is something else that Bruno Famin probably doesn't want to talk about.
I have a twist on that, actually. I did some digging around this because I actually found out about the Briatore news coming on Thursday and kind of went chasing it at Alpine. They tried to tell me, no, there's nothing to be announced yet. And, we're just evaluating options, blah, blah, blah. The next morning they announced it. But I then asked about this digging around in terms of the powertrain situation and are they looking to become a customer team in 2026? And I was kind of warned almost that the ownership structure of Renault as a company and the involvement of the French government means to make a big decision like that is not simple. It's not easily done overnight by just an F1 team. It takes the very top to sign off on a change such as that. So, potentially, if they're looking at options, it's just because they have to have absolutely everything lined out if they even wanted to consider it. But two, and this was a very good point, actually, don't forget that everyone's trying to work out who's going to have the strongest power unit in 2026. And also that means teams are trying to work out, or manufacturers are trying to work out, where do they stand compared to each other. And it's very hard to do. Now, if you're Alpine and you suddenly go to Mercedes and to Ferrari and to Red Bull and go, look, we might bin off our power unit ourselves and just become a customer team, and we, would there be space for you to supply us? And how are you looking? How's it feeling? Who would we work with? Get some intel on that power unit supplier. That it might be tiny details, but you might just find out a little bit more about the competitive picture of what you're doing. So what Alpine are building right now, they'll then be like, okay, this is where Mercedes think they're at, or this is where Ferrari think they're at in terms of their development. So it was a bit of a recon exercise as well at the same time. It had dual purpose. So while it did obviously need investigating from their point of view, or they felt it did, if it was an option they were going to go down, it also meant that they could actually learn something from themselves for a competitive advantage if they do stay as a full constructor.
Wow.
Interesting point. Makes sense. Yeah. Probably get a better look at the lay of the land powertrain wise if you tell everybody you might want to buy stuff from them.
Yeah, good point. I want to jump back to today's qualifying, obviously with Lando Norris on pole. Super exciting and a brilliant lap by Lando. But the first thing is we've got a McLaren, a Red Bull, and a Mercedes in the top three. And this is the first time Lewis Hamilton's been in the top five, I believe, for sure, top six. So, and he said it in his post qualifying interview. He said, it's really great to be here. And then he clarified that. He said, and by be here, I mean on the podium or in the top three. So I should say. And so, that's considering how many pole positions he's had, what all-time leader with over 100. I mean, that's really a stunning number. The fact that this is the first time that he's only started in the top three of the race all year. But it's just exciting for us right now because followed by him is George Russell. So we got, the two Mercedes right behind them and then the two Ferraris. But I do want to go down the grid a little bit and talk about a couple things because we did see Oscar Piastri with his lap end up 10th, go off track. And we've talked about the two Alpines, but Fernando Alonso in 11th, hometown, excited to be here, but they've been a hard one for me to track this year. And Bob, what do you think? I mean, the fact that they have been higher up in racing and in qualifying, but I was a little surprised. I thought they'd be a little higher up.
Well, I certainly thought Alonso would. With all due respect to Lance Stroll, I don't know. Given the way their season has unfolded, last year maybe they promised only to deceive when they had so much early success and then kind of tailed off. They started the season without that early success, and they do seem to be, fluttering around in the midfield. And sometimes they make Q3, and sometimes they don't. As you say, it's a very hard team to track. I can't imagine Fernando Alonso has been more inspired this season than what he was today in front of those jam-packed hillsides and grandstands full of his fellow Spaniards, but couldn't get it done, whether it was mechanical, strategic, whatever it might happen to be. I think a lot of it was tires. I think maybe both of the Astons, used up their allotment of red stripes, the softest compound, trying to get out of Q2. So even if they'd made it to Q3, it wouldn't have been much. But they just didn't have anything but scuffs to go out on. Maybe they, found themselves in traffic. We've already talked about the fact that there was a lot of really, shall we call it, interesting driving going on out there, both in practice and in the early rounds of qualifying. So, tough day.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, what about you with Aston Martin? I mean, I obviously agree with Bob. I was surprised Alonso, if he couldn't get it done here. But what do you think about what's going on with them right now?
Yeah, that was a funny one because I had probably Alonso to be quicker than the Alpines here. But obviously, when you've got a top four now that's got very close, Mercedes have made a clear big step, then the best they're fighting for is 9th and 10th on the grid. Now, he'll start 10th because of Perez's penalty. So he was actually one place below because of the two Alpines. That was a surprise. They're not miles off. But obviously, it makes a big difference if you're out in Q2 or through to Q3. That was a surprise. And he gets such huge support here. We actually had you can hear the crowd, certainly in the main grandstand, when drivers finish laps. So there was a lap, I think Carlos went fastest at one stage, and you heard it from the crowd. But Fernando coming through the final couple of corners, you could hear the crowd cheering, like trying to will him to the line when he's trying to finish that lap to get through to Q3. And then it just went silent because he crossed the line and he didn't jump up to the level they were expecting, and he stayed 11th. So, it was a disappointment, I think, not just for him, but for the crowd as well. And Carlos being, on the third row rather than the second or first, I think also is. So, bit of a shame for what's a big, big crowd here that there felt like there was more potential in it. But I still think he'll be fighting for the points. I would be surprised if the Alpine's race pace is stronger than the Aston's. It's just going to depend on how hard it is to overtake here. We've had it very difficult in the past, but sometimes it's been a bit more easy with DRS. As everyone said, there's a lot of potential for weather. In fact, while I'm chatting to you, I'm going to do my highly scientific update of just checking what my phone's telling me for where I'm stood right now for the next 24 hours, because it has been looking like it could be troublesome in the morning, and that still is the case, but it looks like it's likelier to be cloudy but dry around race time. So who knows? There might be showers around, but it doesn't look like it's going to be hammering it down all day or anything like Canada, let's put it that way. So I think it would just be a bit nervy for the teams looking to the sky. But yeah, if it's a dry race, then maybe it'll be tough for Aston to move too far forward. But I think it does depend on that Alpine race pace.
All right. Well, coming up after this, we are going to give you our predictions for tomorrow, a little discussion on that. But also we're going to talk about Daniel Ricciardo, Logan Sargent, and the Haas F1 team, who all finished in the bottom 10. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after these messages. Okay, we're still live on the stream. Let's see. Yeah, we left off a while ago talking about Paul Bryan. And guys, I mean, I don't know if you know about Paul, but he hosted for 20 years a show called Drive Chicago on Chicago radio, 20-year car show. He took calls, discussed, all things cars. And he also won 2 Emmy Awards. I knew he'd won one. The second one surprised me. But yeah, he was a fixture in the car community up and down. And rest in peace, Paul. Let's see what else comments are here going on. Oh, Andy P likes your theory, Chris. He says, interesting theory on Alpine. Had not thought of the story in those terms. I was doing the same thing, Andy, as Chris was saying that. So TW,
it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Clearly there would have been reason that they have to be serious to be considering that. Otherwise everyone would do it. But yeah, it just means that there was a benefit too if they do stick with their program.
Yeah. TW says, will George's ego get the better of him at the start? Okay.
I guess he needs against Lewis into turn 1. I mean, they were 0.02 of a second apart in qualifying, but I think he will be smart enough because you don't want to risk when you're third and fourth and you're trying to chase down positions in the Constructors' Championship and the team's heading in the right direction. You don't want to suddenly turn that into a negative story.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, good point. Everybody's asking where Jonathan is. Jonathan has got Trans Am duties in Mid-Ohio this weekend, so that's what he's doing.
Why can't he dial in? Part-timer?
Well, he did it last time. I think he's actually on the microphones at the same exact time. So let's see. Joe Voice says Fernando can't drag the car around successfully against this field. Yeah, that's a good point. Implying that Fernando gets everything and more out of every car he drives. I can't argue with that, Joe. Yeah. All right, coming back.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Max Verstappen, for bringing us back. I want to talk about Logan Sargent, guys. Bottom of the field again. The car's struggling. His teammates right ahead of him in qualifying today. So 19th and 20th for Williams. But Logan Sargent's more than almost 3.5 tenths off. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I wrote down his average is over 3 tenths. Yeah, about 3 tenths. So He's not making any ground right now. It's just
that's to his teammate, right?
Yeah, sorry, to his teammate, to Alexander Albon. Bob, it's just really discouraging, isn't it, for Logan Sargent?
Yeah, I guess you got to wonder if he's just kind of losing motivation when it becomes increasingly clear that he will not have that drive next year, nor any other drive on the Formula One grid. So yeah, it's a really tough situation for him to be in. Showed some signs of progress last year, but this year has just been abysmal for the American. And another chapter closes, I guess, in the history of American drivers in Formula One.
Yeah, good point.
Dare I? I'm just chasing a lemon around the paddock. Someone just dropped a lemon. You wouldn't believe it. This is the things I do live on air. But I was going to say, I think abysmal this season's a bit harsh. I think towards the end of last season, actually, might be what's carrying over in that thought process, because he made a lot of expensive errors, didn't he? Crashes towards the end of last year. He's only had one that I can remember off the top of my head this year, big one in Japan. But he's also had the car that's not been of the same spec to Alex Albon, basically until this race weekend. And Albon himself said, actually, people have been really underestimating the job Logan's been doing because of that discrepancy up to now. He's been doing a fantastic job, and he's really, really quick over one lap. But this was the race where then both of them were kind of saying, but now's a good chance for him. He gets the same equipment. We're talking about basically the weight saving Williams have been doing. So while they don't get listed as true upgrades, so it said they brought no upgrades here, but they actually had a number of parts that were manufactured out of different materials so that they were lighter for the car. And that's automatic performance. You take weight off, you go quicker. You don't need the aero to work any differently or whatever. So he didn't have an excuse this weekend. And that's actually what I found most disappointing about today. I was like, this is his chance to be within a couple of tenths, within a tenth maybe of Albon. And it's a track as well. It's not the most difficult circuit. And I was like, this is where he can actually make a little bit of a statement that, hey, look, give me equal machinery. And I am quick over one lap. And we tend to then see him, just fading a bit in races or making mistakes there. But he didn't do it today. So that's actually what's disappointed me the most, I'd say. But similarly, like Bob also pointed out, it must be hard when everyone's been asking you about your future, but in reality, they're all talking about who's going to replace you. And the real focus has been on Carlos Sainz going to Williams. I've heard it's much, much closer now, to the extent that maybe there was whispers of something being announced this weekend. I'm told it's nothing signed yet, but it sounds like there's a proper piece of paper in front of Carlos ready to be signed when he wants to, or if he's willing to. So I do think that that's going to really play on Logan's mind, that, he's still inexperienced, he's still young, and he's having to face that scenario. So that can't be helping either. That, it's fair to say on that front. But also, this weekend, you said, dead last, but Williams 19th and 20th. This track has not suited them, and they have not managed to get everything out of it.
Yeah, good points all. And Carlos Sainz has said as much as any day now. He sounds like he's he was asked straight up, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was asked, "Have you made a decision?" And he said, "Yes," basically. So we're all just waiting for the ink to dry and for the announcement to be made.
I'm going to do that thing where I do sort of correct you, Bob, but I know where you've got to there from. So he was asked, "Have you made a decision?" He said no. And that it was because it's so hard with what do you do for next year, what do you do for 2026. But you're right, he said, I'm fed up now. I want it done. I don't, this is taking up space in my mind. Like, I'm tired of it. I want it over. So he kind of was like, I need to make a decision. Like, I need to make it and make it fast. So you're right. He's kind of saying, I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get, I'm bored of it now. But then when he was asked, like, oh, does that mean that you've made your decision? He said, no, that's the problem. I think in reality, he's kind of staring down the barrel of two pretty poor opportunities. And the problem is, the longer he waits, I mean, knowledge is power, but if you judge Williams on this weekend, looks really bad. Like, it looks like the team's not got any momentum, not going anywhere, because this has been a really poor weekend so far. But this is a track that doesn't suit them. Alpine were the rank outsider for him to join. And obviously, with that talk we had about the engine, maybe not going to be a works team in future. But then they've put both cars in Q3 and suddenly look like a good option, like that's recovering and might be worth considering seriously. And then stake Sauber Audi in the middle of all that, where Bottas was comfortably through to Q2 and nearly. I think, in fact, both cars got through, didn't they, Q2? And Bottas wasn't a million miles away from Q3. then you're like, yeah, that's not so bad either. So
Yeah.
I think he's just going to confuse himself the longer he waits.
Yeah, and that's the problem with taking one weekend as key data to making your decision. I think that's probably a mistake. But there's no question, what I've been singing the praises of Alpine all year. I mean, in Bahrain for the first race of the year, they were 19th and 20th, and now here they are getting into Q3. So yeah, it's possible, and they're doing it despite all the outward indications of chaos within their management. The job is getting done.
Hey, Chris, you said that the Williams team's got a contract ready. I think that contract's been ready for quite a while, and they just have to keep scratching out the date every day, going, okay, Carlos, let's sign this. But hey, I want to
clear the dust off it.
I want to switch gears and talk about the RB team, Red Bull. I mean, the RB Honda, V-Carb team.
V-Carb, yeah.
So Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo, I was really keen to watch this after last weekend, after Daniel Ricciardo had the controversy with Villeneuve and the comments from Villeneuve, and his reaction was good. And it looks like the problem this weekend is just the car. His car's not fast, because they both basically qualified almost with identical times, with Tsunoda slightly ahead of Ricciardo. So that'll be one to watch this weekend too. I want to see how Ricciardo reacts to that. But the Haas team, all Friday, Thursday and Friday did not look good, but I was a little surprised to see how well they did. Nico Hülkenberg pulled it out again, and he didn't do great, but qualified 13th and Magnussen 16th. That's kind of feels like back to where they have been. So it seemed like coming into the qualifying they just had no momentum at all, is what it felt like to me. But
well, you've got to say as well, that's 8 of the 10 teams were within just over 0.6 of a second of each other in Q2.
Yeah.
At the end of the Q2, that's how close it was. Alonso was comfortably within half a second of Verstappen's time in Q2. That was the fastest time, and ended up 11th. Mm-hmm. So all of these, when we talk about them in positions, is one thing, and is ultimately how everyone's judged. But it shows how close it is that if you get it slightly right, slightly wrong, you move up a big chunk or you drop back a big chunk. So it's great to see. But I think, slightly getting something wrong this weekend at RB, and it's knocked them both out in Q1.
All right. Well, we're out of time, guys. We've just got about a minute left. I want to talk just quickly about I said we're going to do predictions. We're going to wait for our predictions before the end of the pre-race show tomorrow. But the prediction to me is that we've got 3, if not 4 teams right now in the hunt, as we talked about this convergence. And I guess my quick question to both of you guys is, do we really think that any one of these 8 drivers, I really should say 7, I just don't see Checo doing it, but of these 4 teams possibly being able to win this race?
Yes, I think all 4 can. Sorry, I was just looking down on you. We're tight for time, and I saw Alec McNish, who's here for Audi. They're all in that mix. And maybe it's outsiders for Mercedes and Ferrari, certainly for Ferrari. But as we talked about before, you only need one of the chasing pack to take the fight to Red Bull to really make it exciting. And that's what we've got with Norris.
Yeah. 2-stop race tomorrow. I think tires are going to be critical. The weather, once we see what happens overnight, whether it rains or not, don't want to miss the Spanish Grand Prix.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, our coverage starts at 8 a.m. Eastern time, and the race right here with us and with the BBC feed. And then, of course, our post-race show right after that. And we will talk to you in the morning.